Let's get physical. Jordan here, back again with this week's update on all the physical releases coming to the Nintendo Switch, January 20th until the 24th, week 4 of January. As always, we're taking a look at all the physical retail releases, all the low print games up for order, some juicy imports, and our community spotlight where you show off your pickups. Remember, if you want to show your support to this little series, leave us a comment with what you are playing in your backlog and what is the most recent addition to your collection. Personally, this week, what did I get? Well, you may have seen my review of Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and I got my copy, a game that I really love, one of the best JRPGs on the Switch. Did anyone else pick this one up, or are you happy with your Wii U version maybe? Or are you daft enough to double dip like myself? Anyways, let's get on with this week's physicals. This week we have an exciting release for shooter fans, as the West is finally seeing the release of Psycho Shooting Stars Alpha, part 1 of the Psycho Shooters collection. This is only available in a collector's edition thanks to NIS America, which includes 3 very tempting soundtrack CDs, art book and cards, plus the game of course, which includes 6 excellent shmup arcade classics. I suspect many people already picked these up when they were, first released in Hong Kong, and then a Japanese release came later, which is the one that I reviewed for the channel, but this is great for those who chose not to import. Check out my review if you want to know more about these awesome games. But wait, there's more. Next month is seeing the second part being released, titled Bravo, which, if I'm being honest, contains the better selection of games. Although that's a close call, but whichever collection has Gunbird will always be the winner. Also, some uncertainties briefly for this week. Furwind, a game that I mentioned a while ago, the physical was delayed indefinitely and has popped up back on Amazon UK, so maybe it might actually come out. Check that out if you're interested in pixel platformers. And the D&D Collector's Edition that I talked about last week might be releasing in Europe this week. It seems there was a delay on those releases. Right, that's it for Western retail, not a lot, but before we head into low print games, don't forget that if you're new here, hit that subscribe button for all the latest Switch content, plus we will be giving away a Nintendo Switch Lite when we get to 50,000 subscribers. We're nearly there, guys. Looks like it's going to be about March time, unless you guys can help spread the word and get us there faster. Alright, the low print games. Now last week I missed a game, a pretty obvious one too. I mentioned that limited run games were putting up WayForward's Mighty Switch Force collection up for order, but I failed to mention that they also put up pre-orders for their upcoming new game, Vitamin Connection. God knows how I missed it, probably stressing out from making the physicals video sandwiched between Super Robot Wars X and Atelier Dust Trilogy review. I apologize, but anyways, you still have like a week left or something to get your pre-order in for this one. It's from WayForward, so you know you're getting something of pretty decent quality. Red Art Games announced on their 2nd anniversary that they are publishing Candleman on the Switch. This is a unique puzzle platformer where light obviously plays a big part. There are 2,800 copies available to order right now and is planned to ship in April. Now, not necessarily classed as low print, but I'm putting it here because NIS America's collector's edition stuff usually sells out pretty fast. They recently announced that they are publishing a collector's physical release of Little Town Hero from Game Freak, probably the most divisive game of last year when it released digitally. Some loved it, some hated it. I swayed between both at times during my review. I would have bet a large sum of money on this being from limited run rather than NIS America, so it's lucky I'm not a gambling man. So what's the word on this one, guys, now the dust has settled? I still stand by my review, was wondering if any of you had played it since, and I'd love to know your thoughts on it. Also, it's worth noting that this is currently only up for purchase on NS America's North American store. There is no sign of it on the European store as of yet. Streets of Red, a decent little indie beat-em-up, is being published by PM Studios and distributed by Limited Run Games. I remember this being touted as a bit of a hidden gem on the Switch when it originally released. Check out our ancient review for more info if you want this one for yourself. Pre-orders start on the 21st. Alright, before we get into imports, just a heads up that all the games mentioned here, if any of them take your fancy, then in the description and pinned comment we have links below as to where you can find them for yourself to purchase. They are affiliate links, so any purchase will also help out the SwitchWatch team massively, and we very much appreciate all of your support in this regard. You guys have been amazing, it really helps push us forward. So, anyways, imports. Okay, another game that I missed from last week, probably not my fault since the release date just changed without warning, Chemco RPG Omnibus. This is a release that I mentioned in our upcoming imports video, one of 2 releases from Chemco. This is the Asian release, which has 4 of their budget JRPGs on one cartridge. You get Revenant Dogma, Illusions of El Falcia, Cronus Arc, and Legend of Tetrarchs. perhaps 4 of their lesser known titles, which makes me want it even more. I love a good obscure underdog title, and when it's a JRPG, that means I've just got to add it to my Switch wishlist. And while these games may not hold a candle to most of the top tier RPGs on the system, I have to say, as an idiosyncratic release, this is right up my alley. Also, a quick mention to Chemco's other release later this month, this time in Japan. Chemco RPG Selection Volume 1 has some of their better known titles, although English isn't 100% confirmed yet, but personally I have no doubt since all of those games have English on the Japanese eShop. It would be extraordinary if they didn't have English on this cartridge. Okay, I for one am eagerly awaiting the physical release of Romancing Saga 3 this week. Yes, this released digitally not so long ago in the West, but is now getting a physical release in Asia and with English on the cartridge. This is a remake of Square Enix's JRPG from 1995 that only just got an official English translation. You know me and JRPGs, it was so difficult resisting the digital version back when it came out, and I'm so glad I pulled through so that I can pick up this physical bad boy. What I'm looking forward to is just how unconventional of a JRPG this is supposed to be, way ahead of its time, completely ignoring the standard tropes of the genre. It may not gel with everyone, but I appreciate it for trying something really different. The links I've put below are a little different too. Both are Asian regions, but I believe one has English on the cover art while the other has Chinese. Void Terrarium, no, that's not a spelling mistake, that's how they're spelling it, and it's supposedly pronounced Terrarium. Yeah, I don't get it. Anyways, this is a rogue-like RPG from Nippon Ichi Software. I don't believe there is English on the cartridge because they tend to wait until NIS America get their hands on it. Nippon Ichi are one of the few companies these days that actively avoid including English in their Japanese releases to prevent sales loss from NIS America. Anyways, that just means there will probably be a Western release at some point in the future. Pretty much every single one of their games makes it over here eventually. I have to admit, this looks stylish as hell, and I'm intrigued. Arc System Works, on the other hand, are usually awesome at including English in their Asian releases, and Mistover is no different. This was released digitally a few months ago, but is finding a physical release just now. A deep 40-hour survival RPG where the game is dynamic as every move you make may alter the future. It looks dark, has a catching art style. There's a demo on the eShop to find out for yourself if it's something you'd consider importing. It's worth noting that the Japanese release is kind of a collector's edition with an art book and downloadable soundtrack, while the Asian release is just standard and has a price to reflect. Ghostblade HD is finally being sent out this week on the 21st. You can get this excellent shmup in your hands very soon. This is a Play Asia exclusive release, which comes in both a standard and collector's edition. The collector's edition comes with a steelbook, arranged soundtrack CD, a certificate, plus a manual like the standard release does. If you fancy a modern shmup that can hold its own against the classics, this bullet hell may be the one for you. Links are below if you fancy it for yourself. And I would say that is a very, very healthy import section this week. Now, I'm going to forego a personal spotlight because it's a packed enough episode and just jump straight into the community spotlight where you guys send me your photos of your recent pickups or collections. As with the import section, some of these games mentioned or seen here are imports, and so if any of them take your fancy, check the links below in the description and pinned comment so you can find them for yourself. There's a lot of tasty stuff here, guys, and you can help support the SwitchWatch team at the same time. Alright, let's start off with top dude Peter Clark, who sent in this nice photo, which I will title Final Switch Fantasy. The lovely Final Fantasy 7 and 8 twin pack, exclusive to Asia, Final Fantasy 10 and 10 Part 2, which for us, the import is the only way to own the game, because the Western release only has the first game on the cartridge, while the Asian and Japanese releases have both games on the cartridge in English, no download required. It's one of my favorite imports. Not only is it an excellent package, but it's also a matter of principle. Downloads are not what we want, this is what we want. And of course, it has Final Fantasy 12, a great game, love that version of the art cover. Choco Loco James showed off his Shovel Knight haul. What an excellent game, definitely worthy of a shrine like this. The recent physical of Treasure Trove is really some of the best bang for your buck that you can get. Yacht Club Games really did a service to Shovel Knight fans by sticking to their word and even going way above and beyond what was originally thought. Excellent game. Chronodium sent in their picture of a dog, which I think was a mistake, but that's fine because dogs are awesome. But then they showed off this picture, which I've turned sideways since it's easier to read. Don't worry, he hasn't stuck them to a wall. I mean, right now I want to point out The Lost Child, because in our Discord channel we were talking about the lack of Atlas games on the Switch, and it really made me crave some, so I have considered picking up The Lost Child. It's not by Atlas, but it's kind of a knockoff Atlas Shin Megami Tensei game that might be enough to let me pick it up and scratch that itch. Ganeka showed off this picture with some nice variety, some great low print games like Celeste, which is also getting a Japanese release this March, by the way. Earthlock, a nice fun JRPG. Also interested to see some slightly more obscure titles like Helmet and Dragon Marked for Death. There was a lot of hype about that release prior to it releasing, but interesting to disappear just as it did come out. Perhaps it was the confusing release efforts whereby digitally there were 2 different versions or something. I don't know, I forget, but it wasn't the wisest decision, I feel. Chris Hepburn showed off a few games that recently turned up at his door this week. Some limited run stuff including Gunvolt Chronicles, River City Girls, excellent game. Iconoclast, a really great story-based action platformer. I reviewed that what seems like forever ago. Highly recommended. And, well, Gal Gun 2. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that one. Sometimes words just aren't enough. Cheers, Chris. Park Ranger showed off some great import stuff. That shmup that I can't say almost as much as I can't afford it. River City Melee Mac, an interesting import. I think it's kind of like Kunio-kun's version of Smash Bros. Or Power Stone. Gigantic Army, a weird release that was incredibly limited over on Play Asia. Kind of like a mech version of Contra or something. I'm curious to try it myself. Thoughts appreciated. And okay, you've got me. I generally pride myself on being fairly knowledgeable about Switch releases. There's not many that I'm not aware of. But you've got me with that Ultra Core, buddy. I have no idea what it is, when it released, or who it's from. I've got no idea. Congrats, that is a first in the series. Steven over on Twitter showed off something that is really a collector's piece, Bayonetta Non-Stop Climax Edition. Now this was a Japanese only collector's release and was much better than anything we got in the West. Why? Well, it's the only way to get the original Bayonetta, Bayonetta 1, on a cartridge. Yep, in this edition you get both games on separate cartridges, and my word, did I wish I paid more attention to this before it came out, since now it demands a very, very high price, especially here in China. People are asking for like $300 for this online. Steven, you just made a man very jealous. Poopykins is back with a couple of games to show off. 2 excellent releases from last year, Astral Chain and Dragon Quest XI. I know I embarrassed myself recently by admitting that I don't actually have Dragon Quest yet, but hopefully I will rectify that in the future. Also, Ys 8 with its lovely reversible cover. Literally every physical release should have a reversible cover. Swizz, a great dude who, we talk together on Discord. I believe they're called Mitchell in the YouTube comments. Anyways, they are a big collector and showed off this photo from 2019, but also one of some recent pickups, Transistor from Limited Run Games and SD Gundam G-Generation Cross Rays, which is a great strategy RPG featuring many stories from the Gundam universe. Highly recommended if you're into Gundam. Tons of content, puts up a good strategic challenge, a fantastic import. Check out my review for more info on that one. Urius over on Discord bedazzled my eyes with these 2 photos of their portable cartridges. Now it's really hard to know where to look, but having zoomed in and scanned across them myself, there's really some quite obscure stuff in there. Perhaps not rare, but there are some like German only releases in their kind of like, like TV game shows. They also showed off some of these recent pickups here. Valerie over on Discord showed off a new purchase, NG, a horror visual novel adventure style game, second game in the Spirit Hunter series after Death Mark. Admittedly, I don't know much about it, but any horror visual novel would definitely get my interest. If anyone's played it, let us know how it is. And finally, to round this week off, well, I'm not sure any words are needed for David's Switch collection. Thanks, David. Amazing collection there. Loving those collector's editions. Alright, thanks ladies and gents, really appreciate you sending in your pictures. If you want to send in your recent additions for next week's episode, either 1 game or 5 games or 20 games, it doesn't matter because it's not a competition. In fact, I think I prefer pictures with fewer games because it allows me to focus on something, but any is good. Send it to me over on Twitter at SoWhatAboutGame. Please DM me so I can keep track of it more easily, or you can email it into us at contactus@switchwatch.co.uk. Just make sure you start the email title with Community Spotlight so I don't miss it. Plus, we have a Discord that I've just mentioned, which is a nice way for us to have a chat with you guys. If you want to join our server, our link is in the description below. Send your pictures on there if you want to. Right guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of New Physicals. What has taken your fancy this week? Be sure to check out last week's episode in case you missed it, my review of Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and don't forget James's Bargains video telling you all the best ways to spend your money. We'll see you guys over there. Take care.